Hello everybody, thank you for tuning into another cup of tech. This week, fair few news items to get into. First of all, let's get straight started with a couple of things. Comments from last week, you guys were all over it. It's one of the most watched shows in the shortest period of time that I've ever done in Cup of Tech. Really thankful to everyone who does watch the show, leaves comments as well. I love hearing from you guys, it's awesome. Now, I spoke last week about the iPhone that I've got. I've got Android phones, I've got now a Windows phone here to play with. And there's a couple of questions in about, what do they like, what's good, can you compare them? Well, what I did this week was I compared the cost of living with the device. So apps, music, movies, and books. Because those sort of things all exist in their own stores. Like Google has a Play Store, Apple has the App Store and iTunes, and Windows also has their own store, which I hadn't really played in before. And if you have a look at the article, you'll see it's actually really quite limited. And Apple kind of came out on top. Their ecosystem is really, really good. And their prices sometimes are a little bit more expensive, but sometimes are actually even cheaper than Google. Really interesting to look at. I only did a sample. It's not every single thing. It's not exactly scientific, but it's just a sort of a snapshot into what I discovered. Also, just speaking of Apple right now, I wanted to cover this. Today they had their earnings call, which is they talk about their earnings in the last quarter. Now, in the last quarter, Apple generated $54.5 billion in revenue. $54.5 billion. They sold 47.8 million iPhones. Million. They sold 22.9 million tablets, so iPads. And that's a huge number. It's a record for them. Yet industry analysts came out and said that they missed their mark. Now, when they say that they missed their mark, it's the mark which the analysts have set, not which Apple have set internally as their goals and their targets for revenue. It's an industry analyst. Now, let me just give you an idea about what that means. Say, for example, I decided to start a career as an industry analyst. I could go and get myself a business number and I could start my own business and say that I'm an industry analyst. And then I could say, I think Apple should earn $60 billion in the next quarter. And if they don't, they've missed their target. It's all based on their own facts, their own figures, things which they've got in their heads. And then the media naturally runs wild with it and says that Apple failed to, reach their targets. No, they didn't. Their internal targets are probably completely different. But when they have a record month with more sales than they've ever had in their whole time, I would say they've hit their targets and they've probably done well. But I was shocked, 47.8 million devices in 90 days they've sold. Not just recently, Samsung was touting the fact that they sold 100 million S devices, Galaxy S devices, which included S2, S1, S3. That was 100 million. 47 in 90 days. 47 million, mind-blowing. Anyway, that's the facts. Let me know what you think about that. I have one. I don't feel so cool. I have just one. Last week I had a question from, I believe it's Marco. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know you watch the show, so you can correct me. Marco, you left a question there about what I thought about Apple not changing a whole lot with their look and feel of their OS. The icons all look very similar, from iPhone 3 onwards. I had a 3GS, so I know for sure. And now using the iPhone 5, there's not a great deal of difference. And what's my thoughts on that? Well, here's the thing. The reason that they haven't changed it, I think, is because when you're on a good thing, you just don't touch it. Take, for example, Facebook. Not that long ago, Facebook introduced the timeline and they started to modify the way that you viewed content in your feed. The world blew up. People freaked out. People hate change. Naturally and psychologically, people just don't like change. You have someone who does a routine and you affect that, people just flip. It's just natural. Now, Apple, yes, I believe they do really need to update their OS. It is kind of boring and stagnant. One thing I'll mention about that as well, though, you look at, if you've got an iPhone, just take it out of your pocket while I'm telling you this. The calendar icon, or app, it's live, so it actually tells you the date. I don't have to go into the app to tell what the date is. That's nice. The weather, it doesn't. It's always 23 or 25 degrees, which is not always in my world. And the clock's always 10:15, but it's actually not always 10:15. And those sort of things really puzzled me, like why? Why couldn't you make those icons live? And the scary thing is that you will one day, Apple, and then you'll call it revolutionary, and that's going to really piss me off. But I found that really weird that I can turn the phone on, get to my icons, and I still have to click on the clock to tell the time, or I still have to click on the weather icon to tell the time. And I guess that's just because I'm used to Android widgets, and they're awesome. So yeah, still getting used to the whole ecosystem there, but that's one of the things that's just weird. Speaking of a little weird, and sort of talking about Google again, Google Maps had to come out and sort of tell the public that they didn't kill the donkey. Now, what I mean by that is they're doing Street View in Botswana. Now, Botswana, if you don't know, is like a sandy desert. It looks kind of rugged and rural, if that's the right phrase. But you'll have a look at these images, and they come across a donkey that's just laying on the dirt. And then later on, you just don't see it. So you assume that either the Google car ran over it, or it just went around it and left it dead. But what happens in actual fact is, if you actually look at the imagery properly, it was sort of laying down and then it gets up and walks away. And Google had to come out and sort of defend the place and say, because, you know, surely some animal rights activist or somebody probably said it was wrong or something happened. But you look at it, it's quite funny. It does look like they do run over the donkey, but they actually don't. And they also said that the donkey was probably having a dust bath, which you'll see in the video. That's what a dust bath is. I didn't know that donkeys did it, but apparently they do. So Google did not kill the donkey, apparently. Now next week is the launch of Blackberry 10, and for me that's super exciting. Having been a Blackberry user for years, I am excited to see the finished product. You know that I went to Bangkok and saw their dev device. I'm super excited to see the actual release of the new one. Now when that happens, I'm hoping to get my hands on a review unit, because then I can compare Blackberry, Windows Phone, iOS, and Android. That's everybody, right? So that's gonna be exciting, and I know that as part of the launch, BlackBerry's been planning on getting into the same sort of thing as Apple, you know, selling music, selling movies, selling books, that sort of stuff. So that's gonna be really interesting to compare again, now that I've got another one to add into the field. So that's gonna be interesting. Let me know if you're excited for Blackberry 10. I'm absolutely pumped. After seeing what it was gonna look like, I'm really pumped to see the finished product. January 30 is when we start to hear about it, so that will be interesting. Now, lastly, but certainly not the least thing, it's actually something I've got for you. I have another giveaway. It's not the Mercedes-Benz of giveaways. I don't actually have a car to give away yet. Look under your seats, as Oprah or someone would say, but I don't. This one, I'm giving away 2 copies of Norton 360 multi-device. Now, if you don't know what that is, I'll give you a quick rundown, because I actually run Norton 360 on my computer. The computer I have in front of me that I do all my editing on and all my evening work runs Norton 360, and I actually enjoy it for one reason. I don't have to deal with it. I love an antivirus software that just is installed, updates by itself, scans for viruses, protects my computer, alerts me if something goes wrong, and that's it. I love that. And I'm going to give 2 of the copies away for you guys. Now, it's the multi-device, which I don't have, which I'm jealous about, because multi-device will work on any 5 devices in your house. So Macs, PCs, and even Android devices. Now, the cool part here is this. If you install the multi-device on your Android phone and you lose it, you could remotely wipe it from home. So if you lose the device, oh my God, it's gone, someone's got all my pictures, you could wipe it. If you lose your phone under the couch, but you didn't know and you're just like, where the hell is my phone? You can make it make noises remotely. So you can do a lot of remote control stuff, you know, stuff which businesses do in their enterprises, but you can do it with multi-device. So it really adds a lot more functionality and security to your Android phone, which I think is actually quite cool. And I'm actually a bit jealous that I don't have one. Anyway, so what do you need to do to win? Super easy. One thing. If you were creating a virus, what would you call it? I mean, we know about all these viruses that are out there. There's been so many, all with really creative names. You tell me the name of your virus, and I will, which ones I find the most creative or whatever, I'll just give it away. 2 copies. I'll announce it in next week's show. I'm not going to drag it on for months, and you can win it. I'll get it straight to you. Simple as that. That's it. That's my show. Next week is very different. Next week is very different, and I can't tell you what it is. Next week is going to be completely different. This won't be here. It will look very different. So thanks for watching Cup of Tech. Tell me your virus name, and I'll see you in a different location. Right next to the I'm spelling it too much. I'll see you next week. Bye.